taxes are always an important topic for Yorktown voters. There's a lot of discussion this budget season about how much surplus the town should use to offset the levy. I mean, eventually the board agreed to kind of push the 2% tax cap all the way to the limit and kind of put some money back in the fund balance. Where do you stand on that issue? I'll start with Bob.
Well, you know, using the fund balance and the surplus is something that, you know, everyone learns to do. I know I use the example of my father, who was a blue-collar worker and hardly worked during the winter. He was in construction, and so you had to you call it squirrel away, save money for the winter months when you didn't have you know, an income. So that's kind of what the surplus and is all about. And like everything else, it's a balance. How much is enough, and when is it too little? When do you increase taxes versus using a surplus from any one of the many accounts? I think we're a $57 million budget this year, somewhere in the neighborhood of $24 or $25 million in fund balances and surplus. That's going to be something that the 5 members of the board have to have an ongoing discussion about. When do you take it from here, and when's it appropriate? We have a open space fund. We collect $30 a year. Some people are saying today we probably don't need that. We have enough open space, but you know, we're also looking at decades of neglecting our roads, and at some point in time, I mean, Superintendent Paganelli told me this week my road is in real bad shape, and if he were to pave the 4 miles of Hunterbrook, it would take the whole budget, $500 million. Now, he's not going to do that, because then the rest of the town is going to be pretty upset with us. So, well, we do need to start thinking about the bigger, longer-term implications of, you know, you can let your bridges just rot and rust away for so long, but at some time, at a point in time, you have to put big dollars and big effort into the infrastructure of the town. And so, again, it's a balance thing. There's no clear answer.
And just for clarification, you said 500 million. Did you mean another figure?
No, I'm sorry. 500,000.
That's a lot of money.
Big better than I. Was anybody awake here?
Big road.
Yeah, that's a big. But yeah, 500,000. Sorry.
All right.
But,
and Tom, what do you think about the fund balance and tax?
Well, Supervisor Grace came in with a 0% tax increase. Through the bantering back and forth, we are now at about 3.6% tax increase. The other board members did not want to go into the fund balance. I think what we're going to have to do is we're going to have a fund balance cap, whatever that might be, whether it's going to be $2, $3, $4, $5 million. Pardon me. To maintain our 0% tax increase, to have it static or to have a tax decrease. 80% of our taxes, 87% of our taxes are on the backs of our residents. And let's face it, fund balance, if there's too much of a fund balance, you're taxing your residents too much. That's the taxpayers' money. So if we can go into the fund balance and take a little bit of money out here and a little bit of money out there, and we have a cap where we don't go below, we stay right in there, then I think we can maintain our 0% tax increase, bar a catastrophic problem.
Well, it's you're getting a little into the weeds with when you talk about fund balance. I think with what the average resident or voter or taxpayer understands with it. But there's 2 ways you can use the fund balance, and the first would be to give it back to the people, and that sounds great to the residents. Give me back my money. The other way would be to spend it on capital projects, and I think Bob touched on that the roads for the past 5 years, there hasn't been any money in the paving budget. Our bridges and culverts need repair. You know, new trucks we need to bring into the highway department, things along those lines. So you can use some of that fund balance to pay for those capital improvements. But then it also becomes an issue if a resident has lived here and they move out of town, they don't get use of that money if you're using it on a long-term project. And then when you do put it into the budget to reduce the tax rate, you have to, it's a revenue item, so you have to replicate that every year. So at some point, you're gonna be in a position where you have a revenue item of $1 million that you put in for fund balance, you have, and you have to keep on taking that from fund balance. So if you don't keep generating a fund balance, you're gonna be in a situation where you would have a spike, potentially. I mean, that won't happen for years because we do have a large fund balance. But I think that's the two ways you can use the fund balance. The other issue would be our mortgage taxes and our sales tax have not brought in as much this year as what was projected, so you may not end up with as much of a fund balance as you did. So that's exactly the example. If the revenues don't come in, you're not going to end up with a fund balance. You won't be able to give it back. You won't be able to keep on putting that money back in the budget.
All right.
Regarding fund balance, there's, we have different fund balances. So we have restrictions on how we can use some of the money as allocated. Some has to be spent on the water department, some is for the sewers. So I think we can't lump it all together and say how much we have as one big fund balance and say, well, we have $20 million or whatever that number happens to be, because it can't be spent that way. But I do think we as regular families, we're told have 6 months worth of extra money in the bank, so that if you lose your job, if you have to, have repairs done to your house, you can pay for them. I think we have to do the same thing here. We have to make sure that we have the money in case something unexpected comes up. Which is why we can't spend all of our fund balance, obviously, but we do need to start spending it on infrastructure as well, because things are going to fall apart. So there's definitely moderation. It has to be worked out. It has to be in moderation. I do want to make one point regarding taxes, because last year, I read through the budget book, and like everybody keeps telling me I'm new to this, and so I read through the budget book, and it's a big book, and it's a lot of information. And as I was going through it, I'm trying to figure it all out. I said, what would be the best thing for me to do is to take out my taxes and look at my bill from last year to this year. And I want to see where my taxes were. Did they go down? Did they go up? Because I'm being told that, let's have a 0% tax increase for a third year in a row. Well, town taxes, my town taxes for my home went up $20.72. So I did not get a tax decrease. I am on water, but I'm not on sewer. I got nothing. So I think when we're looking at when people tell you I'm decreasing your taxes, it might have been because they took money out of the water fund balance, and those people, or the sewer fund balance, and those people who are on sewer got the break. Well, I'm not on sewer, so I didn't get a break. So I think as residents and as taxpayers, we really need to sit down and look at our bills, our individual bills, so that we can differentiate for ourselves what we're getting or not getting.